When talking about cells, there's two main categories that we can divide them up into, either prokaryotic cells or eukaryotic cells, and the simplest of which are prokaryotic cells. Now, prokaryotic cells are also the older of the cells, and eukaryotic cells are thought to have evolved from prokaryotic cells. So here, I've got a very rough kind of sketch of a prokaryotic cell. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some of the main components of a prokaryotic cell. So the first thing to recognize is prokaryotic cells are going to be things kind of like bacteria, and they're very small. So we're talking sort of as small as 1 micrometer in size. So prokaryotic cells are very small and they're very simple. Now, one of the key differences between a prokaryotic cell and a eukaryotic cell is a prokaryotic cell has a nucleoid rather than a nucleus. So a nucleoid is just kind of this general area where the DNA is housed in a prokaryotic cell. And the DNA is a single loop and it is still double stranded. So the DNA is a single loop and it's still double stranded. What you see here is in the middle, it looks like this kind of tangled mess, and that's how it exists within the cell, as almost this kind of spaghetti, this tangled up spaghetti. But if you were to unravel it, you would see that it is in fact a single loop. It's just all jumbled up. Now, what we also see in a prokaryotic cell is we see a cell wall. So the cell wall here is designed to kind of enclose the cell and keep it rigid and keep some structure to the cell and keep it strong. And just inside of that cell wall in the blue here, what we have is a plasma membrane. And the plasma membrane of a prokaryotic cell is to do with cell regulation, what comes in and what goes out. And it's also heavily folded, which requires surfaces for things like respiration to take place, DNA replication to take place, attached to the plasma membrane, and also photosynthesis in some particular prokaryotic cells, which can photosynthesize. These little black kind of balls here are ribosomes, and ribosomes are going to be the site of protein synthesis. So the creation of proteins, which can go on to be things like enzymes, because in the ribosomes located in prokaryotic cells. If we go back to DNA just very quickly, we've got a bit of a loop here. Now this loop these loops can be found in some prokaryotic cells. We call these a plasmid, and what they are is a small loop of DNA. So some bacterial cells can have these little outlying loops of DNA, and they can actually be quite helpful to humans when we're looking at genetic engineering. But we're not going to worry about that right at this moment. The last part of the prokaryotic cell I'm going to talk about is these little squiggly lines coming out from the cell. So one of these is called a pilus, or a number of these we can call a pili. So most bacteria will have, or most prokaryotic cells, often bacteria, will have a number of pili or even a single flagellum, which is kind of like a big pilus which comes off of the cell. What their job is they are to do with the movement. So the movement of these pili can help the prokaryotic cell to be able to move around in a somewhat unsophisticated manner. So overall, you can see that prokaryotic cells are relatively simple. They are the simplest of the two main categories of cells, being prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. They are quite small, which gives them a really good surface area to volume ratio for exchanging materials. And they are overall quite simple in comparison to their eukaryotic counterparts.